take our weakness. You set your treasure in jars of clay. So take this heart, Lord. I'll be a vessel to see your life in me. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Oh, I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see you now. Oh, I can see the love in your eyes. Laying yourself down, raising up the broken to life. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Oh, I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see you now. Oh, I can see the love in your eyes. Laying yourself down, raising up the broken to life.
Go ahead and be seated. Now today we're going to be continuing through our study in Romans chapter 6. Typically what we would do is Pastor Eric has a standard where on the last week of the month we do a topical sermon, but as I understand that you guys did that already. So this week we're just picking up where we left off in Romans chapter 6. Now, what you guys did miss out on was that the first half of Romans chapter 6, we did cover in youth group, is that Paul asked the question, well, shall we sin that grace may abound? There was this weird thought that they had in Rome where they thought that, well, if grace is what gets me to heaven and I get grace when I sin, then 1 + 1 is 2, and therefore I just sin all the more so I get all the more grace and have extra bonus points in heaven. Don't ask me why they thought that. It's a very serious problem with their reasoning, but that's what they struggled with. But now Paul asks another question here that you do deal with. And that question is, do you abuse God's grace? And in preparing you for this text, I want to tell you of something that happened. I'm going to date myself here. That happened when I was a sophomore nearly 20 years ago. It was more than 20 years ago, actually. And it happened, just happened to be my first experience, my first encounter with what we would call civil disobedience. It happened in school. My friend James came up to me after passing period and he said, Jeff, we just did the most amazing thing ever. We did civil disobedience. And then I found out that what he was talking about was he had a substitute teacher in his PE class. And he decided they decided to make her suffer a little bit. What had happened was, as you could expect, they all in PE, you're supposed to wear these uniforms that have your name on it, right? And you're supposed to sit in a grid on the black top so they know where you are and who you are by the chart. And so they decided, well, we're not going to wear our uniforms and we're not going to sit where we're supposed to. We're going to jumble up. And so, of course, the teacher didn't know who was who, and they decided, oh, we got her, right? And that's where I thought it would end. But after a while, the teacher decided, well, you're just going to have a punishment. I'm going to call the principal, and you guys are just going to have to run laps around the blacktop for the entire 90-minute class period. And so they did. And they ran around, and the teacher went over to get the principal. And by the time the principal came back, she witnessed that where she had left her students had turned into an endeavor of absolute chaos. The students had run across the field to the other end where the fence meets the street. The girls were flashing cars as they drove by. The boys were throwing their books and their backpacks over the fence into oncoming traffic. Police had to come. They had to shut down the intersection. And then when the police decided to come and start talking with some of the students decided to, what do they call it? They call passive resistance, right? And their form of passive resistance was to play a giant game of duck, duck, goose in the middle of the grass. And then when police grabbed them, they went limp. So I heard about all this. I was deeply troubled about my small high school, less than 300 students. Now, why do I tell you this? I tell you this because the class that they were in up until that do, and most but true obedience practiced where? In the heart. Though they may obey, they secretly harder to hatred for obedience itself, didn't they? And as we continue in Romans, we find that this is exactly what Paul wishes to talk to you about, because he says, maybe go ahead. It's verse 18 through 20. But then not under as obedient slaves, you are slaves of the one who you obey, which leads to death, or of obedience, which leads to righteousness. Slaves to sin have become under which to righteousness. Human numbers as so now you present slaves to slaves of sin. You were free in regard at the time from the things of which you are now for those things, but now that you have been set free from you get